Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Political reflections: US deploys forces to Mideast to deter Iran. The Pentagon is sending a carrier and its accompanying ships, as well as what is known as a bomber task force, to the region in coming days in response to a number of troubling and escalatory indications and warnings, said the National Security Advisor John Bolton in a statement. So that looks as if it's heating up as well. A rocket is seen in this photograph fired from Gaza towards Israel. The OAS representative Gustavo Tare said Nicolás Maduro had initially agreed to flee the country but changed plans at the last minute. All of this suggests that Guaido's Venezuelan interlocutors were setting a trap for both Guaido and the US. Indeed, that looks like the case. Final results expressed as a percentage change from 2015 are remarkable. UKIP minus 82%, Tories minus 24%, Labour minus 4%, Lib Dems plus 109%, and the Greens up 273%. How this is interpreted as a mandate for Brexit, I don't know. However, Brexit party soars in European Parliament polls, 9 points ahead of Labour, says Zero Hedge. Trump campaign knew it was sending polling data on battleground states to a suspected spy en route to Deripaska, and therefore Putin. And this is my article: we have a deviated tomahawk from feeding the hothouse conspiracy online, a constant state of destabilized perception, timely and judicious doses of WikiLeaks leaks which drained Hillary's bona fides and her turnout and motivated Trump's. What we have witnessed is something remarkable and noteworthy. Putin has proven himself an information master, and his adversaries are his information victims. I said in that article the first thing is plausible deniability, and the second thing is non-linearity. Kidnapping, a very efficient business, says New York Books. It's an incredibly good article talking about in Argentina, early 70s, leftist guerrillas started snatching executives of multinational companies and demanding ransoms. As Argentine ransoms soared, insurers at Lloyd's were beginning to rake in premiums from a peculiar product. Kidnap and ransom insurance had existed since 1932 and was developed in response to the abduction and killing of Charles Lindbergh's 20-month-old son, but it didn't take off until the 1960s. In the mid-1970s, Julian Radcliffe, a young insurance broker in London, came up with the idea for Control Risks, a security consultancy that, as part of the Lloyd's K&R package, would advise policyholders on how to prevent kidnappings and assist if one occurred. Around 90% of all kidnappings are successfully resolved. Industry is flourishing. More than 75% of Fortune 500 companies have K&R policies, and premiums are worth $250 to $300 million a year. Then talking about negotiations, there is a pace, a rhythm to these things. If the initial demand is $1 million, and recent cases in the area have been settled for around $10,000 in around 5 days, then an initial offer of $5,000 might be a good start. And more money will be found, though, in decreasing increments. And then talking about kidnappers used to target the ultra-rich in Mexico, but many have shifted the focus to the middle class. The trade has been democratized. And then finally ending with this bizarre story of an Englishwoman named Muriel Tinko Pawley, taken hostage along with her 3 dogs by bandits in northern China. Tinko had grown up mostly in China and married an Englishman who worked for the Asiatic Petroleum Company. The kidnappers demanded a huge sum of money and sundry supplies, and threatened that failure to comply would result in Tinko's ears being cut off and her dogs killed. This bizarre case, Tinko wrote to friends requesting lipstick and threatened the gang leader in fluent Chinese with both personal haunting and the transformation of his ancestors into turtles if she were killed, was finally released in exchange for gold, opium and some stylish brogues, and was a sensation in the British press. Tunisian police killed 3 militant Islamists in the central city of Sidi Bouzid, which was where the Tunisian revolution started. And in January 2011, I wrote about it for the Christian Science Monitor, and I was quoting the crowds who were chanting, "We are not afraid, we're not afraid. We're afraid only of God." Abia Mahdi al-Halabi said, "The day's seismic events in Tunisia serve as a lesson for countries where presidents and kings have rusted on their thrones." In that article I said, keep an eye on food prices. Those are sky high and not coming down, and not unlike dry kindling awaiting a spark. I said this Jasmine Revolution will amplify 2 ways. And it would be naive not to expect that it might not cross the Sahara and head south. That was in 2011. Change is never incremental. Tips and surges. Looking at Tunisia and Africa, I see so many similarities. There is the widest spread between the average age of the rulers and the average age of the ruled. Tunisia is but the first example of the elastic band snapping. Sudan faces fuel crisis and worsening cash crunch. Cars queued at almost every petrol station in Khartoum on Saturday as motorists waited for fuel for several hours. Soldiers manned the stations to ensure order. Crisis, along with a cash shortage and electricity outages, posed challenges to the country's ruling Transitional Military Council. At least a dozen ATMs in a commercial area in central Khartoum had no cash. A maximum daily withdrawal has been set at $45. Most residential areas in the capital experienced near daily electricity outages for hours. The increasing blackouts occurred as Khartoum's temperatures soared to highs of 45 Celsius. That's not a good sign either. I personally don't think the army have the wherewithal to resolve the economic crisis, so for the TRM asserting ownership now is a ball of fire. I said before many times the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. And then I saw the opposition tweet this: "Our responsibility is great, and the first one is to ensure the continuation of the sit-in and all forms of protest and demonstration, including political strife and civil disobedience, which will ensure the achievement of the objectives of the revolution." And the gathering of professionals confirms that he will be behind the masses and that he remains in his custody to abide by the masses until the goals of revolution are achieved. It made me go back to this movie called The Battle of Algiers by Guido Pontecorvo. You've got to watch it. It is one of the most brilliant anti-colonial films ever made. Absolute pinnacle of counter-cinema. The ne plus ultra of a mode that seeks to intervene strategically in the war for social change. Have a watch. I did an interview a while back with Maria João Lopo de Carvalho about Louis de Camões in a book which followed his 16th century journey from Portugal to Macau. And I'll leave you with 2 lines from one of his poems. "Sun, moon and stars for me no longer glow. Night would I have to wail for vanished peace. Let me from pole to pole no pleasure know. Let all that I have loved and cherished cease. But see that thou forsake me not, my woe, who wilt by killing finally release."